zone. 50-50 ball. Touchdown, Huskers.
Nebraska wins its 5th national championship.
Giving you an inside look at everything going on in Husker Nation. This is the KLIN Husker Hour.
Kicks and deals the 2-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Strike 3. Jackson Brockett has the first 9-inning no-hitter for the Nebraska Cornhuskers since 1954, and he did it on his 12th strikeout.
Sunset, got it! Thunderdog, and then one! Exclamation point! Pump the brakes!
Now your hosts, KLIN contributor Cole Stukenholtz and sports director Nate Rohr.
Good Saturday morning. Welcome to another edition of the KLIN Husker Hour. It is a reaction edition, as for the second time this year, Nebraska plays on a day before Saturday, so you get to have some instant reaction right here on Husker Hour. And for the second time this year, Nate Rohr, Nebraska loses a football game, and this one stings on the road. Yes, not always easy to win on the road in the Big Ten, but you really felt like this one was going to go your way, and it certainly did not. We will react to this one for most of the hour. We've got Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7 coming up as well. He's probably on his way back from Minnesota. I don't know if they're going to try to make the basketball game this morning or not, but they're en route back from Minneapolis. So we'll chat with him, and we'll dig into what exactly happened out there in Minneapolis. We'll break down some volleyball too along the way. But Nate, it was a game in which Nebraska was favored to win a road game back-to-back weeks, and would have been, didn't know this until yesterday, the first time Nebraska has won back-to-back weeks on the road since 2006 when I was still in college. What? And of course they did not do that. And I had to listen to my kids say that the score was 6-7 for about half of that game as well. You know, 7 thing, your kids may not be old enough yet, but yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Don't know where you want to start, but I'm just going to throw it your way. Take it wherever you want to go, buddy.
I'll go right at the line of scrimmage because that's where Nebraska absolutely got run. They were dominated, and it drives you nuts that at a program that has, yes, the history that Nebraska has, but now, even in this brave new world of NIL and paying players, you look around and hey, they've got a 5-star quarterback. They've got a running back that's pretty good. They've got wide receivers who are really good. The defensive backfield's really good. The lines are bad. Period. Amen. End of story. And yes, I know there were intervening difficulties, especially on the offensive line.
Yeah.
But, it's not like they were blocking all that well when Rocco Spindler was in there. It's not like they were blocking all that well when Elijah Pritchett was in there. And then when you have to shuffle your line and you don't have continuity there, it only got worse. And, by 7 games through the season, you are who you are, right? You know who you are. And there's very, very little that is going to change about your personnel, and very little that's going to change about your scheme. But, oh boy, whatever you've got, whatever possibilities you have, figure them out, because Dylan Raiola is not going to survive this season getting sacked 7 and 8 and 9 times. And, I'm a little flabbergasted at how poorly the offensive line has played. It's just unacceptable. There's just no other way to say it. I mean, and they did not run the ball that well. I'm not sure how committed they were to the run. If we're being honest, I mean, Nebraska didn't, and maybe we should have taken the first drive as gospel, because Nebraska ran Nebraska threw it 3 times instead of trying to establish Emmett Johnson, trying to get him going in that game. But in the end, what's really frustrating is here's Minnesota that doesn't have the resources you have, that in theory should not have the coaching, the players, anything you have. And at the most elemental point in the game, this is not, Patrick Mahomes 2.0 just taking over a game and going crazy. This is elemental sausage ball football, and you got beat. And there's nothing more complicated than that. They were able to, a team that really has not run the ball all that well this year was pulling down 5 yards a carry, running the football against you. And I know Darius Taylor's good, and I know Darius Taylor has a lot of potential. He was also beat up. He was also questionable coming into this game. And Minnesota just lined up and hammered you. And by the way, they had a freshman quarterback. Yeah, he's got a big arm, but buddy, if you take the run away and make them play with their left hand, they're in a lot of trouble. So, yeah, I just think that, I'm disturbed at how big a deficiency Nebraska's offensive line is. And the problem is there seem to be few answers. Other guys played last night. They pushed the button they could push, putting Elijah Pritchett in. Pritchett has been at best a push at left tackle. And with the penalties that you have there and the mental mistakes that you have there, I don't know if he's a positive or a negative. And the other part is that some of the other things that you might do to help that offensive line that needs help, you really can't do. I mean, the tight end, the 2 injuries on offense that are there right now are the 2 guys that you thought would be your blocking tight ends. Now, it's a question of depth. It's a question of, okay, where's the next guy? And so often we hear about football being the next guy up. But that's become a big deficiency. And now you don't know if you're going to have your best offensive lineman the rest of the year. Because Rocco Spindler, of course, left the game, had to go to the hospital. It sounded like that was, this sounds like worse than just a broken hand here.
Yeah.
And so your offensive line, which was already a liability, just got a whole lot worse and played poorly. So it's in the laps of the big guys for Nebraska football. Dylan Raiola could play better. Dylan Raiola could get rid of the ball quicker. The play calling could get better. The play calling could do a better job of hiding Nebraska's deficiencies. The defensive line has a lot of egg on their face. But you dictate the action when you have the ball. And when you have a clear deficiency like Nebraska's pass blocking, you've got to hide it. You've got to minimize it as much as possible. Instead, Dylan Raiola is getting sacked 7 times a game and 9 times last night. The fact that he drives your offense and he physically is a question to make it through this year, really worrisome. So, and one more thing. Last night, what was an attitude game, was a program focus game, and Nebraska laid an egg. We have heard all year long about the culture in this program. We feel like the culture is better. It has certainly looked better. There has certainly been improvement. But where was it last night? It just flat out did not show up. And whether it's the Matt Rule to Penn State talk, whether it's getting high on your own supply, whether it's somehow, and I have no idea how, minimizing Minnesota, because Minnesota's flat out punked Nebraska for a decade. That was pretty disturbing. I mean, you've got to play harder than that. You've got to play better than that. So just a really disappointing night. I don't know what to make of it moving forward, but holy cow, that was a real step back for this program last night.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with almost all of what you said there. We are up on the StreamYard. If you want to take a look at us stream this morning, you can get on the KLIN socials, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We're on the Husker Hour Twitter page as well. We've got almost 30 folks on there with us, and more of that to come. I'm going to get to defense a little bit later. Let's stick with offense as you were on that. I will push back a little bit on, yes, the offensive line part is not good. They did what they could in the offseason. They went out and paid 2 guys. Both of those guys were gone by the end of the second quarter, or by mid-second quarter. It's tough to adjust. Granted, Pritchett, you can't get ejected. We can talk about that ejection if you would like. I don't know that that's a penalty, number one, because I see that all the time in football. You get a guy on the ground, you keep him on the ground. He didn't lead with his helmet. He shoved him, whatever. So that part of it is unfortunate. You pay these guys to come in and then they're gone. And hey, you got to have depth ready. They've talked about the depth. Where was the depth? Was it quality depth? You moved a guy from tackle to guard, and then that's the first guy you put in at guard when Spindler goes out. And then you saw a couple of the results, some of the miscommunications. Obviously, hey, as people are pointing out on social media, Kanak has not played guard very much. So it's understandable that he would make a mistake like that on one of those blitzes. Well, then why is he playing guard?
Yeah,
right? Like there's some decisions that you can make there. Whether that's Raiola, whether that's Holgerson, whether that's Rule, I don't know. Move on from the offensive line for a minute. I went back and looked at him. I put 6 of those 9 sacks yesterday, Nate, on Dylan Raiola. He has to let go of the ball. He has to be okay with throwing it away once in a while. He has to see the ball, or he has to see the route and fire. Even if it's not the best one he wants, he's got to unload the thing. He's got to understand that the offensive line is a little limited. Whether they were healthy or not, they were still having tackle issues against other Big Ten opponents. And then when you lose two of your top 5, then you really got issues up front, and you really have to be cognizant of that. They sacked him twice on 3-man pass rushes because he just keeps dropping back instead of stepping up. That's coachable. And he's just either not listening or he's just not doing it. He made plays happen, throws it left-handed, throws it horizontal to the ground, like ridiculous. But you have to make the basic plays in order for the thing to work too. It's great if you can do the creative stuff, but you have to make the basic stuff work. And if you want me to pick a scapegoat for the offensive struggles, I'm going to start with Dana Holgerson. Because I watched this thing unfold last night, Nate, and I'm like, this is the Michigan State second quarter. This is the Michigan State third quarter. He's doing the same stuff that he did against the Spartans. And you've had 2 weeks to correct that. What are you doing? Yeah, you gotta talk to him. You got to show him the film. You got to say, hey, this is what you did wrong. This is how we can fix it. Don't let it happen again. And the same stuff happened again. The column that I wrote after the Michigan State game, here are some fixes for the offense. Run the dang ball. Throw more screens. Single read throws. And to their credit, they had 3 really good single read, drop back, hit your back foot, and fire it deep. He missed Dane Key twice. Neither of those were close. He was open, and neither of those were close. And then he dropped one in the bucket for an Isaiah Hunter who flat out dropped it.
Yeah.
I don't know that those make a difference in the way the final plays out. Maybe it's still a loss, but if you hit one of those early ones to Key, it certainly changes the game flow. I don't know that Minnesota gets so comfortable running the ball in the second half if you hit one of those long ones.
Sure.
And then how in the world do you not target Ja'Cory Barney one time in the first half?
No.
And then 1 receiving yard in the whole game. That playmaker on your offense, you can't scheme up a way to get him the ball in his hands? Unacceptable. That's Dana Holgerson. he's number one for me if you want to talk about offensive scapegoats, because there are ways that you can scheme around the known deficiencies, the things that you understand that you are not good at. You can't do that. And so that's why I start with Holgerson, and then I go Dylan Raiola, and then I go offensive line. I know the offensive line struggled and they look bad, but you know where you're at after you lose 2 of your 5 guys. You got to help them out. That's where I come out on that whole deal. I do want more of your thoughts on this, Nate. Of course, we will get to them, but right now we need to grab our first break because we are rolling already, and we've got 24/7. He's going to join us to give his thoughts on what the heck he saw up there in Minneapolis. He's headed back right now with the other 24/7 boys. We will get to the defense, and we will get to the Penn State discussion. The speculation that dominated coverage last week. We will hit that and volleyball as well. Plenty more to come here on a Reaction Saturday morning on the KLI and Husker Hour.
Get the Your Saturday morning source for everything Huskers is right here. You're listening to the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3.
All right, after that first segment, got a little warm, so I had to take the hoodie off. We're going to keep this going here with Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7, joining Husker Hour. Nebraska is 24-6, lost to Minnesota. Bruntz, I understand that you are on the road in beautiful northern Iowa. How are we doing?
We're okay. We're powering through. The coffee and the Albert Lee, I don't want to say the company, but their truck stop, it was straight trash. So we're trying to go through. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got to deal with what you got. I mean, there's
yeah,
and that's what Nebraska fans are doing right now. They're trying to figure out what they got. It's an Albert Lee truck stop worthy game. I want to see what you thought of what your perspective was from the stadium. It looked to Nate and I that Nebraska was just not as ready to play, not as motivated to play, not as ready to hit and tackle and block. Really, the way that Nebraska had the momentum going, it's not stunning, but it's surprising at the very least. What was your perspective from inside the stadium?
Yeah, I mean, I think offensively from the jump, Nebraska was just kind of out of sorts. I mean, I think for the most part this season, you've seen them put together pretty good opening drives. and that wasn't the case at all. I mean, you had a Minnesota defense that came in having given up over 200 yards rushing last week to Purdue, and Nebraska, wasn't able to really push them around. Didn't really seem particularly interested in establishing the run game, and Nebraska's got a big problem with that offensive line and protecting Dylan Raiola. I mean, obviously Dylan's not doing a ton of favors, holding the ball too long at times, but just completely out of sorts. I mean, it never looked like they found any kind of rhythm in that game offensively. Certainly, Pridgett getting tossed and then losing Spindler early on, that didn't help you. But you never really saw the quick stuff in the passing game that probably could have helped Dylan a little bit. And just a really bad game plan, bad execution. I mean, I can't imagine that the film session is going to be too kind to really anybody when they get back to Lincoln. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a disappointing one. I mean, it felt, last year Nebraska kind of had some momentum. They go on the road to Indiana and just get absolutely blown out. I mean, the score wasn't as lopsided, but it really kind of felt like it. I mean, it just really felt like a game that Nebraska wanted no part of really getting into and beating for 60 minutes.
Hey, what do you make of that? I mean, you have a Nebraska team that came back to win on the road last week at Maryland, and a pretty stirring comeback. And after spinning their wheels for 2 quarters, they put it together in the fourth and played really well. In this game, they were flat. They were flat from the jump. I mean, is that just a letdown in the locker room of the players? Is it the short week and the travel? It's tough to definitively link where the cause is, but what's your best guess?
Well, I don't think it's just one thing, Nate. I mean, you look at, I don't think the game plan was great. In pregame, it didn't seem like things were that flat, but I don't know. I think what you saw in that one was you saw PJ Fleck basically operating with the same game plan that Minnesota's used against Nebraska, regardless of head coach. I feel like games with Iowa and Minnesota, they're almost a little bit like basketball games, and whoever dictates the pace of play is probably going to have a pretty good chance of winning. And for Minnesota to win that game, it was going to need to be a low possession, low snap count, just kind of like fight in a phone booth type game. And, Nebraska just was not ready for that kind of a game. And I think if you kind of look at the last couple wins for Nebraska, I mean, some of the cracks have been there at times that, kind of spread into larger cracks last night. And so I don't know, what the one reason would be why they came out so flat, but I don't know if it's if there was any distraction from the conversation of the week, if that played into it at all. But it just, Minnesota just flat out coached Nebraska and out executed them, and that's when that happens. I mean, there's a lot of blame sharing to go around there, I think.
Yeah, there's a pattern when Nebraska plays Minnesota anymore, isn't there? Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7, joining us here on Husker Hour, breaking down Nebraska's loss to Minnesota. Let's flip to the defense for a minute. Nebraska really shut down Minnesota in the first half, save for that 70-some yard run. But then the second half, 98-yard drive, Minnesota just bullies Nebraska all the way down the field. And they basically play like old Minnesota, like that Nebraska's used to. They didn't throw it a whole lot. But they just ran for 4 yards, ran for 3 yards, ran for 4 yards, and kept getting first downs. I don't know that they're going to see a team that matches up like Minnesota does the rest of this season. Like, Minnesota's a bad matchup for Nebraska's lack of girth on the defensive line, we'll say. But it's still concerning, I think, that you got pushed around like that. And other teams if they've got any capability to do that with their offensive line and their running backs, you got to believe this is a blueprint going forward, because you've seen it now with teams being able to rush way above their season average. They don't have to throw the ball. They probably won't throw the ball against this defense. What'd you see from the Black Shirts?
Yeah, no, I'd actually disagree. I mean, I think there's a lot of teams on Nebraska's schedule left that are going to, that if Nebraska plays the way they did against the run last night, that are going to be bad matchups. I mean, you got to think Iowa's looking at that film whenever they start game planning for Nebraska, thinking, hey, we can do that. Like,
Iowa certainly can. Yeah, they're the one most like Minnesota for sure.
Like, I mean, Penn State could line up and do it. I mean, it's that's the thing. And even going back to earlier in the week and going back to after the Maryland game, I mean, Maryland was not a good rushing offense, and they found a way to move the ball on the ground. I mean, I think everybody left on Nebraska's schedule is going to see that film and think, okay, we can do this. Like, it's just a matter of how patient you want to be with the run game. And defensively last night, I think, not having Vincent Shavers in that game, I think really hurt. As a guy that's kind of has shown a knack at times for breaking through and making tackles for loss. I mean, in the middle of the fourth quarter last night, Nebraska had two negative plays on defense. They had a 2-yard sack, and I think there was another the Winery play where he pulled the guy down on the edge for a loss, and that was it. So, I mean, it just guys weren't winning off blocks. Every time, he seemed to have a ball carrier stopped for no gain. He fell forward for 2 or 3, and the 98-yard drive you mentioned, the backbreaker and the whole thing, where you have chances to get off the field. You had them pinned deep in their own territory, and you didn't take advantage of that opportunity. So they're going to have to find a way, whether it's scheme or personnel or whatever, to play it better against the run, because I think Nebraska's secondary can hang in there. I mean, I think they're fine, but I mean, just really concerning that you're giving up that kind of ground that kind of ground on the ground, I guess, and not able to get off the field. So that's a big concern going forward in my mind.
Yeah, you mentioned that this team has struggled as much as they have in stopping the run, and you look at Northwestern, and though they have not had a great season, I'm sure their game plan is going to be very run heavy, very much shorten the game and limit possessions and manage the clock. One issue that has cropped up in a couple of bad performances Nebraska has had defensively is tackling, and for a defense that has done such good work, especially against the pass, you would think they'd be able to tackle fairly well. Was it just not getting guys, more than one guy to the spot to where you had some help to make the tackle? Because it seemed like there were a lot of broken tackles last night that ended up giving Minnesota a 4-yard gain basically whenever they wanted it.
Yeah, no, I mean, they did a really nice job of just staying on schedule. And a lot of that was just tough running, that kind of typical Minnesota type running game where, you just land a bunch of body blows. They had the big run, obviously, for the touchdown, or almost touchdown. That was kind of a bit of a backbreaker early on. But, I think when Nebraska's done its best defensive work this year, I want to say Michigan State was a pretty good example of it. I mean, you kind of hit on it. I mean, they get a lot of guys to the ball. I mean, you've got 2 or 3 guys there ready to make a tackle. You're not forcing one guy to try to get the ball carried to the ground. I mean, that's something that you got to continue to work on and get better at. I mean, I think it felt like Nebraska had turned a little bit of a corner there. Definitely not last night. I mean, that was a really determined Minnesota football team that they faced. And, I think, for Nebraska too, I mean, they were mixing and matching fronts. They were bringing in bigger bodies, and it didn't really seem to make a difference. So got to get that figured out, some way or another. you can maybe get Shavers a little bit healthier with that the hand injury going into next week, because I mean he's a really big piece of that run defense. I think that was definitely missing.
We'll get you out of here on this one, Bruntz. Got to ask you about the Penn State vacancy and the discussion around Matt Rule with that. Obviously, Rule, I think he's going to sit the fence as long as he can. I'm sure Penn State's probably reached out to his agent. I'm sure his agent's probably reached out to Troy Dannon, maybe looking for that Kurt Signetti light type contract. I don't know that we're going to get any resolution on this until late November. I don't know if you've seen any differently.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's unfortunate because you just kind of wonder, how much of a distraction it's going to be the longer this goes into November. I mean, the tough part about it is I think a lot of it is based on just how Nebraska finishes the year, right? Like if you limp into the finish line in November, I mean, it's a tougher ask, Matt Rule and Troy Dannon, to try to get more NIL money. It probably makes it more difficult for Penn State to do anything. So, I mean, if you're Nebraska, you just got to keep forging ahead, trying to win games and kind of see where things fall. But, I mean, I think, based on the last week, it's, Matt Rule is willing to kind of go right up to the line, talk about how happy he is at Nebraska, but not kind of shut it down or, until there's some kind of like contract with him or some kind of agreement. It's just going to continue. And I think it's going to be a test for Nebraska's focus, because I don't think the questions are going to go away on their own in the next couple of weeks here.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more of what we saw, I think, this last week, just maybe not quite turned up as high. But, buckle up for that, everybody. All right, Michael Bruntz, you are somewhere between Mason City and Des Moines. We'll let you get back on the road. Are you going to make the basketball game later this afternoon?
We might be watching that on BTN Plus. I don't think we're gonna make it back for that one, unfortunately. We'll see. I am eager to see how Nebraska does against a pretty good BYU team, though. Yeah, no,
I'm fascinated by that matchup as well. All right, well, thanks again for your time and for your input, and we will talk to you again soon.
Yep, see you guys.
Yep.
Husker 24/7. We got to grab a break again, but we will dig more into the defense and the Penn State of it all. Nate Rohr and Cole Stukenholtz here with you on your Saturday morning. We roll along here on the KLIN Husker Hour on 1400 and 99.3 KLIN.
giving you an inside look at everything Huskers. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
Big thanks to Michael Bruntz joining us from the road back from Minneapolis. If you missed our chat with Bruntz, make sure you head over to KLIN.com, the podcast page. You can get subscribed to the podcast within Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music. Give us a like, subscribe. We appreciate that. And you can catch up with all of our shows. As I go back to what this game unfolded like last night, Nate, and if you look at the first half defensively, Nebraska on 4 of those 5 possessions for Minnesota allows 8, 25, 9, and 27 yards, 4 punts. But the other one was a 71-yard run. They get the touchdown, and they have the 7-6 lead because Nebraska can't break through in the red zone. And Minnesota ended up just, cranking out 4-yard run after 4-yard run in the second half. Defensively, it was better than what I saw from the offense, but they just couldn't get off the field. You had some penalties in there, and just a couple of busts, and that's really all it took when you didn't have any contributions from the offense.
Yeah, it's tough to put a lot of this on the defense, and they gave up 24 points. That's more than they should give up. You are troubled by the fact that a team that had real difficulty running the football all season long lined up and ran the football on them. Just lined up and pounded away at them. And especially where they've got an inexperienced quarterback, if they had been forced to play, if they were forced to pass, you like your chances. You feel like you're able to control this game. And instead, Minnesota was pretty much able to run the ball. It's funny, Minnesota did what Matt Rule has talked about so much. Body blow, body blow, body blow, stick with your run game. And in the fourth quarter, you land the knockout punch. And they did exactly that. And I say in the fourth quarter, but really it was the third quarter. It was the 98-yard drive. And that was the moment for me where I went, OS ****, we're in trouble. Because you've got him at the 2. Archie Wilson did his job, pinned them as deep as you can pin them. And they were able to get their backs off the goal line when you knew they were going to run the ball. And that's where it drives you nuts, is that you should be able to stop the run when you know the other guy's going to be running the football. Nope. They lined up and they pounded you with a running back that's not as good as yours and an offensive line that certainly didn't come in with the talent that yours had. They've developed. They're better than yours. But, it's just frustrating that here, it's almost like we forgot how every Minnesota game has gone this last decade. And I know they've been very different this year than they've been the last, this last decade. They've got a quarterback they feel good about, and they don't have a running back and a line that they feel good about. But still, take away the run, and Nebraska just was not able to do that. And you mentioned the Vincent Shavers injury, and that was certainly a factor. But what bothers you is this game laid bare the weakness of this program, which is that they're not good in the trenches. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And a Big Ten program, a program that has historically had great lines, they're not good. They are below average in the Big Ten. And, unfortunately, we've had this hope that this defensive line's going to develop this year. And the losses were substantial from the defensive line, no question. And we hoped this line would develop. We hoped it would come around. It just flat out hasn't, and it's not going to. Cade Petchock is going to be a good player here at Nebraska. I think. I hope. But we're not. It's not going to happen this year. You're disappointed with the lack of development in Riley Van Poppel. He was a guy that every time he went in there, he would make a difference, and you felt like, okay, as he gets consistent snaps, he'll be a factor. Well, he's had a bad year. Elijah Judy has developed and has become okay, but he was a good rotational piece. It's the Peter principle of it feels like they're asking too much of him. Cam Lenhart's been stuck in the mud. So it's just the defensive line has not developed, and there's not much depth behind them, and so they have real difficulty stopping teams that commit to the run and run it.
Yeah, they're not hell on wheels. They honestly may not even be mild discomfort on wheels.
Yeah. Hey, I gave them at least that much at one point in the year, but that might have been generous. I had a little warmer heart at 5-1.
That's right. Well, no reason to go back on that at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, the results of yesterday make you think. I mean, it for me, yeah. You mentioned a couple of the elder statesmen on that line. It's Cam Lenhart. Yeah. It's Elijah Judy. Those are the guys that you would have expected to have made more of an impact in a game like last night. And Bruntz said it. Only 2 negative plays all game for Nebraska's defense. That's not going to get you where you need to be if you want to win football games, especially when you're getting so little from the offense. I will say this for the defense. I mentioned how well they played in the first half, saved that one play, which was catastrophic, obviously. Yeah. But even in the second half, they had Minnesota. They had on that 98-yard drive to a 4th and 3, and then on the other touchdown drive, they had them down to a 3rd and 3. And I said out loud, they're stupid if they pass here.
Yeah.
And what do? They threw it. Like it goes back to that old principle. What does your opponent want you to do? You should do the opposite.
Yeah.
And Nebraska, obviously, if you look at the way this defense is composed, the way they've played, they want you to throw the ball on 3rd and 3 and 4th and 3. They got that, but penalty on both. You have holding on one, you have a pass interference downfield on the other. I think one of them was legit. I didn't like the other one. Whatever. It happened. They still didn't get off the field after that and allowed them to score. And the other thing, I talked a little bit about, hey, when you've got the good plays dialed up for deep shots, I want that. I want one read, hit your back foot and throw it deep and make your guy beat our guy, right? And they missed 2 on key, and Hunter dropped the 3rd. Minnesota tried it once, and it was a perfect throw by the freshman Lindsey. So you got to tip your cap at a certain point with that. And then last thing I'll say on the defense, they have had injuries on defense, but I think they've been building that depth better. Marquise Watson-Trent did play well at spots. He had that sack where he came untouched up the middle. Actually, I don't know that he had the sack. He had the first hit, but I don't know that he actually brought down the quarterback. We'll see who got credited for that. But good scheme there, and they got that play. And Williams-Nwaneri, we do see still.
There's hope there.
Yes, there is another. And so you do feel good about some of these young guys that you have. Williams-Nwaneri, Donovan Jones, you're riding the roller coaster with him a little bit last night. Good in spots, got beat like a drum on others. It happens. He's a younger player.
Yeah.
And Sierra Wright misses a tackle on one, and I think it might have been Andrew Marshall missed a tackle on. They both missed a tackle on a crossing route on a 3rd down. Those are the fine margins. It's those shots you take downfield. Can you catch them? Can you throw them accurately? And then can you get off the field on 3rd down? Blackshirts just didn't quite do it enough to make it out alive. And so Nebraska falls to 5-2. I do want to get, when we come back, into the Penn State question. We've not talked about that other than just the one question to Bruntz. So get your and my thoughts on that. And volleyball we've got to get to as well. Plus Husker hoops. They are coming up later tonight or later today, 11 a.m. pregame and noon tip against a top 10 team in their exhibition matchup with BYU. So All that to come as we wrap things up here. More of Husker Hour right after this on KLIN.
Tune in to Retirement Compass Radio Show.
Hello. It's paradoxical because the more Nebraska wins, the better a candidate he is for that job. So obviously, last night that candidacy took a big hit. The Curt Cignetti extension taps out the guy that I thought, just apples to apples, could be the best candidate, the biggest challenger
to Matt Rule for that job.
So
it really just depends on how big a swing Pat Kraft is going to take with this position. I mean, if he's going to go after a Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame, a Brian Kelly from LSU, then the situation gets very interesting. And so those are probably the two guys I would watch. If they get extensions in the next few weeks, then we're on a collision course for Matt Rule and Penn State. So I mean, I could see a scenario where somebody else gets this job, but until we hear Matt Rule gets an extension at Nebraska, I'm not so sure that this thing gets resolved until that Sunday after Thanksgiving, when either Matt Rule says he's staying or he's having the press conference in Happy Valley.
Yeah, and the other thing I think of with this, obviously he's got the decision to make, right? Can you make this decision without the emotion attached to it and just look at it from does this thing work out for me in the end? And he's got a lot more examples to look at of folks who went home and it didn't work out versus guys who go home and it does work out. And he doesn't need to look very far because he succeeded a guy where that did not work out very well at all. So he's got similar resources at both. He really does. Like Penn State has facilities and they've got money, and Nebraska does too. Penn State has the home pull. Nebraska is where he's at now, and he has a lot more internal knowledge of the situation. So whether it ultimately just comes down to, I mean, does he want the challenge? Does he think he's done what he wanted to do here? Like, does he feel like he has unfinished business at Nebraska? Does he think this job will come around again? Like, if this was next year and Nebraska was like 10-2 at the end of a year 4, I think he would take it, because I feel like he'd have the finished business aspect of it done. But now that he's in this fight in his 3rd year where they just had a big stumble, I don't know what type of guy he is, if he's, more determined to get it done and feel like he can't leave without getting the job done, because he kind of did the job at Temple and Baylor before leaving it in good hands with his successors. So like you said, it's not going to get resolved for a while, but it is a fascinating story that we will continue to follow for a while.
It's tough to figure because, I mean, here's the other part. Say he has an okay finish to the year, but he's an 8-4. And he's still a guy that Pat Kraft anoints as his next head coach. Is it still a good situation for him? Because now the Penn State people are entering with a skepticism of, okay, you're going to have to take a jump as the head football coach here. You're going to have to do better than you've done the last few years. We're hiring an 8-4 coach. Why did we push out a 10-win coach for a guy that has been 5, 7, and 8 at Nebraska? And so that's the situation too. I mean, if this is the last bump in the road and the Huskers just rule the rest of the way, that's a whole new ballgame. Then at that point, I think there is the finished business aspect for Matt Rule. And for him too, if he's going to make a move, the clock is ticking. I mean, he's getting to a point where he's been 3 different schools plus an NFL head coaching job. I think he wants to be at a place for 10 years and see it through. So, you're at a point where you go, okay, this might be my one chance to go home. I think there's going to be a really strong pull for him to go home, And Nebraska's going to have to assess how hard are we going to compete to keep him, whether it's NIL resources, extension, stadium expansion, whatever that looks like. How hard is Nebraska going to compete with Penn State? And I think they're going to have to beat them on every money, every figure.
Yeah, I agree. Husker Hoops, we've got them with their exhibition game, 11 o'clock tip-off, or 11 o'clock pregame, right here on KLIN with the 12 o'clock tip against number 8 BYU. And volleyball, 17-0 now, 13 sweeps. Their game against Michigan is tomorrow. That one's a 12 o'clock pregame with a 1 o'clock first serve right here on KLIN and over on B. For Michael Bruntz and Kenny Larrabee and Nate Rohr, I'm Cole Stukenholtz. Back again next Saturday with another edition of the KLIN Husker Hour. Go Big Red.
Are you ready for a new opportunity? Check out Sandhills Global. Join a dynamic team where your skills are valued and your career can soar. We offer full-time positions with a 4.5-day